This video is brought to you by store4business.weebly.com. It's a business store bringing you business-themed books, movies, clothing, gives you access to investing apps and crypto buying apps, and you can even buy digital guides on the site. It's absolutely amazing, and check it out, link in the description. Welcome to the CWT Business Show. I've been doing the CWT Business Audio Show podcast for a while now, and I recently decided to also start doing it on YouTube as well, and actually doing the audio on the podcast itself. My name is Caleb Tanner. I am CEO of CWT Media, which is a business-themed media company developing many different blogs, podcasts like this one, and you can see the link to everything that we own in the description below. And now it's time to get right into the episode. There's a lot of different business-themed topics that I want to talk about today. First one being stress. As a businessman, I am extremely stressed, a lot of different times. I think that creating a business, especially the kind of business that I'm doing, where there's, so much work and actually, gaining an audience, monetizing the actual content to the audience, teaming up with various different businesses. And it's just, a very difficult journey, and it often provides a great deal of stress. That's one thing that, I've been noticing, especially lately. Last night for hours, I was doing nothing but talk to different business owners and try to get, a deal for my business itself, like a sponsorship deal. And the thing is, when you do that, when you spend hours upon hours talking to different businesses, knowing that there's a very good chance it'll amount to nothing, it can be pretty stressful. And the thing is, last night while I was working on this company and building the brand that I'm trying to build, I became extremely stressed out. That happens, quite a bit. But I realized that in order to build something great that no one's ever done before, and in order to achieve success, if you're trying to achieve a level of success that, not many other people have, or that very few people ever get to, you can't do what everyone does. You have to work harder than they do. You have to work harder doing the right thing. And you just have to be willing to do more than anyone else has ever done. And that is why, when you're starting, something like I'm trying to build, I remember, if you asked, I think it was someone asked either Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, someone like that, what advice they have for, entrepreneurs that were, going out there and trying to build a business, or, words of encouragement they can give them, and their answer was, if you need words of encouragement, you shouldn't do it. You should want it that bad. And, that's kind of the question that I asked myself yesterday is, do I want it bad enough? Is this something that I'm actually willing to work harder than anyone else has ever worked to achieve anything on this? Do I want it that bad? And I concluded that, yeah, I do. This is something that, I've always dreamed of doing. It's something that I love doing. There's nothing I love more than actually creating content, whether it be in podcast form like this, or blogging, which is something that, I love doing more than anything. If I'm willing to do more than anyone else has, writing a blog, I can succeed more than anyone else has. And the thing is, when it comes to, the blog, which I recently started a new blog, which is all about crypto, it's been interesting trying to promote that one because, I've had to go, multiple different Facebook groups, subreddits, build an audience for the blog. I've had to go, on my own Facebook page and convert my current audience to members of the blog. And it's definitely been stressful, especially because with, my current blog, which I've devoted, a year plus to growing, it's hitting certain numbers that, the new blog just simply isn't yet because it's newer. And actually converting that audience to the blog is going to be, basically kind of the deciding factor on either if I'm a success or a failure. And that's something that, it's been weighing on me because, I do want it to succeed. I want to do well. So, it's definitely been stressful, especially because, I have certain goals for each, post. Yesterday I made the post on the new blog. And, I did a great deal of marketing for it. I went to every place I possibly could, to promote it, help build an audience. And the thing is, we actually look at the numbers, that blog post did better than any of the others ever have before, which is, the goal to always be increasing. And also, it just, on all metrics, it performed well. But there was one area I wanted to do better in, which is email subscribers. And I wrote about this on my blog my thoughts on the matter, because, there was a great deal of discouragement in that, and that I didn't hit the amount of like blog subscribers that I was hoping for. I simply just didn't. And I don't know why, I don't know, how to fix that problem yet, but I do believe there has to be a solution out there. And since there has to be a solution out there, then, that means that, I can hit it. And I will hit it. I will go out there and like figure out, what I'm doing wrong. I'll figure out, what the problem is, or if I'm, or like, just, how to do it in the first place. There's different, ideas I had, and that's what I did. I was stressing about it, but instead of stressing about it, I kind of just got out my notepad and, started writing down different, ideas I had to combat that. And I'm kind of just going to like test each one out. And that's really how I'm trying to manage the stress of, entrepreneurship and starting a business, is that when things don't go my way, instead of like, freaking out about it or getting all worried about it, I'm simply just going to try to find the solution. I'm going to try to, make a list of different things to try that will fix the problem, and then go out there and actually try to fix it. And basically, what I'm going to do is, instead of worrying about everything, that might be going wrong, is just fixing it and moving on, instead of spending any time at all even thinking about the problems that I'm facing. I just need to go out and think of, different ways to fix it. And also, like, a big thing that I'm doing to kind of like, minimize the different like stress and everything, is realize that, I'm in a much better position than most, business people get to be in. I still am working, so, I'm still doing something besides the business to kind of like supplement income, make sure that I can, pay my power bill and buy groceries. Where a lot of people, when they're in a business, if they don't succeed, they don't get to eat that month. And some people might look at that as, more of a benefit than a con, because when you're in a position where you can't eat unless you get a certain amount of customers, you're going to find a way to get that certain amount of customers, so you're going to put everything you can into it because you need to, or you're, not going to do well. But I actually don't think that's the best way to look at it. I read a book called Originals, and one of the, chapters was on minimizing risk. And what they were talking about is that, like, let's say, like, someone, like, in my position, some people might look at that and say, you should quit your job, focus solely on the business, and, grow on that as much as possible, because then when you're all in and you have no choice but to succeed, you'll find a way to. But also, I feel like in a lot of situations like that, that can force someone to try to sell a bad product. Like, the examples they use in the book Originals, like Warby Parker, where when they went up to investors, actually the writer of the book was someone they went to invest in, and he declined for that reason. He was like, you're still in college, you're still looking at full-time jobs, you're not putting everything you have in the business, so you don't have, that desire to succeed. And their kind of like rebuttal to it is, because they don't have to do everything they can succeed, if something goes wrong, they're okay fixing it instead of just selling it. Like, Warby Parker, they sell glasses, and they were first doing it, people weren't buying the glasses. And if they didn't have, a full-time income, they would have done everything they could to sell those glasses, and like anything they could, instead of figuring out why people weren't buying it and doing a different way. That's kind of what I think, like, if I was in their position, with the email subscriber problem that I'm having. If, I was in the thing where I couldn't eat unless I got those email subscribers and need the audience to, like, interact with the ads, then, I wouldn't be able to, like, sit back now and figure out the problem and, like, reinvent, my current situation to fixing that problem. I just have to deal with what I have now, do whatever I can because I need to eat. Where now it's like, I have the income coming in where I don't necessarily have to do that. I can just figure out the problem, reinvent it, and then push it back out there. And I think that's a very, different situation. I do recognize that, there is power in desperation, in the sense that when you're desperate to succeed, you'll do whatever you can to succeed. But I also think that, and I think this has to be true, where you can create that environment even if you're not necessarily in it, where you treat it that way. Like, while you're working, you do whatever you can to succeed, but you also make sure that what you're trying to succeed in is right. Like, you're making sure you're actually building the correct thing. And I think that is an important distinction. And, I do think you can like replicate that environment. Like I remember Damon John from Shark Tank talks about that in his book, The Power of Broke, where when you're desperate, your back's against the wall, you're gonna fight hard, you're gonna do everything you can to succeed. And I recognize that, but also, I think that it's important to always create the right thing and make sure that when you're actually succeeding, you're minimizing risk as much as possible, where you don't necessarily have to. And that's kind of my thought on it. Like, obviously, business is stressful no matter how you look at it, but that's how I handle it, or my thoughts on it. Another thing I want to talk about in this episode of the CWT Business Show is cold emailing. I've been doing a lot of cold emailing lately to various different businesses trying to gain sponsorships and different like business connections with CWT Media, my business, the media company. And, through doing this, I've learned a lot about cold emailing. I learned, what does and doesn't work, at least in my industry and what, I'm trying to do. And I thought I'd share some of the tips that I picked up along the way. Keep in mind, I'm by no means an expert or even pretending to be. This is simply just what's been working for me. So with cold emailing, what I learned is try to keep it as simple as possible. That's kind of what I did. And at first, I'm going out there, I'm typing up emails and trying to put like as much detail as possible can here, like telling everyone exactly what I intend to do. And what I noticed is I was getting nothing back really. And after thinking about why, I realized if someone randomly emailed me and I clicked it and I saw some like giant message attached to it, I'm not going to read that. I'm just simply not going to do it because I don't care. Like they've given me no reason to care, first of all, and I just, I don't have time to do that or the desire to do that. And thing is, if I wouldn't read the emails I'm sending, I don't know why I would expect other business to as well. So I began to ask myself, what would I read? Like if someone was going to cold email my business, what would make me actually click on it? And, it's kind of like a gamble when you read an email from someone that you don't know. And what I mean by that is, if you click an email and it's extremely short, it's kind of worth the gamble, and if it's going to be interesting. Because it's going to take up, very little of your time. It's not interesting. It's really, no harm, no foul. But if it's a huge message and you read it and it's boring or it doesn't interest you, you wasted, a good part right there. And it's not worth the gamble to do so. So I realized if it was a really short message someone randomly sent me, of course I'd read it because, it's simply not a big deal if what they say isn't interesting. So that's kind of something that I started to do in my emails is, keep it, as simple as possible. Instead of going to every single detail, I just tell them what I'll do, and if they send me an interest, or they send me an email back, claiming interest, then I might go further into what I actually can do for them. But, I keep it very simple. Another thing that I realized is the subject has to be good. You have to actually put, some work in and make sure the subject is actually something that is going to interest them and make them actually read it. Because, again, going back to me, if someone was to just randomly email me that I've never met, and I click the subject, to see what the email is about, and if it's something that just doesn't interest me at all, or doesn't get my attention, it doesn't matter how short the email is going to be, I already know it's not something I'm interested in. But if you can get their interest at the very beginning, right at the subject link, then it actually works out pretty well, or it'll be much better for what, you're trying to do. And what I, mean by that is, if you actually put, let's say you're offering copywriting for them, 'cause that's what I used to do, and you just put something like, copywriting service, for the subject, people might know what it is and they might actually read that, but it's not really going to pique their interest. Where instead you tell them, exactly what you plan to do there. Like on the subject, you show them, instead of just saying something like copywriting service is something like, telling them what it's going to do for them. Let me do this for you. Where they read it and they're interested to see how you're going to do that. So they actually might, read the email, or it works, a lot better that way. And that's what I've been doing myself, instead of sponsorship request, where someone sees that in the title and they're like, oh, obviously, they're going to try to get me to sponsor something I'm not really interested. And instead it'd be something like, how I plan to bring traffic to you. And they'd be like, I wonder how they plan to do that. And then they'll read the email and find out, and then maybe they'll be interested. By, doing those two things, my cold emailing has gotten a lot more successful, or it's actually worked out a lot better. Because when I reach out to these businesses, they actually have a reason to read the email. And that's really what I found out about cold emailing. Half the battle right there. If you can just get them to read the email, you might get business. And that's something that's been, I've noticed, when I've changed up, the strategies and made it something that I'd actually read, more people actually have responded. And my theory is that's because more people actually read the email. Because even though I was thinking those really detailed things, I do believe if someone would have taken the time to actually read it, they probably would have responded, because what I offer is, a good deal. But if they didn't read it, it doesn't matter if it's the greatest deal in the world. They don't know about it because you didn't give them the reason to actually do it. And that's another thing about cold emailing, is knowing, who you're actually emailing. Where it's you don't have to know the people. If you can find, for me, I cold email businesses. So if I can actually find, what businesses would be interested in. Because, if I, if I'm going, I email a local restaurant in some random city, and none of my media outlets have reached that one city, it doesn't benefit them at all to partner with me. It just doesn't. But if it's an e-commerce brand that, is business themed, or, just an e-commerce brand that, a lot of my customers would be into, and I can show them that, then, of course they'll do it, because they can see the actual benefit, and it actually does benefit them. So you have to, realize that, I think, is, that's kind of another thing is, when I first started, I was just emailing as many people as I possibly could, where now I actually take time to, just randomly email, people I haven't, talked to yet, but also, make sure they're people that if I was running the business, I would do the deal. That's what I think about. I try to find ways, because I'm looking for sponsorships. And if I am a business and I emailed or let's say, swap the roles a little bit, I was the company, someone else was me over there, they send me the email, I read it, would I actually pay for the service? And if I wouldn't, then I just don't send the email. I have to make it where I myself would be willing to pay for the service that I see. And I think that is extremely beneficial. It's kind of putting yourself in the other person's shoes. You're sitting there, you get a random email from someone that you've never, once heard of. They're saying all, this stuff. What would make you actually buy because of that email? And whatever that is, that's what I do. Whatever would make me buy myself, that's what I do. And I do believe if the situation was reversed and I was running, some e-commerce business, and someone of my business emailed me, that I'd buy from them. Because of, that's kind of how I tailored the email. And yeah, that's really been my strategy. Let me know what y'all think in, the comments below. And that's my strategy. And that's really going to be it for this episode of the CWT Business Show. Because it's a new format that I'm trying, and I kind of want to see, how it does. And if it ends up, doing well for something that actually resonates with people, I might make, more of this, the podcast on YouTube. I might see how that goes and make longer kind of videos. But yeah, that's all for this one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And, it was a lot of fun.